Welcome to SewVeryEasy. My name is Laura, and today I want to work on this unicorn applique quilt pattern. I have the pattern, and I do have the layout page. It's a full size, and I also have all of the pieces that I can cut out and put on the fusible and then put on the fabric. But to save some time, I did get the fusible already printed. So all that drawing is already done and it's on the fusible paper. So I just need to take this and fuse it right on my fabric, and then I'm going to be able to get it on the background. So having it already drawn out for me and fused on some flexi fuse will definitely save some time. And because we have a unicorn, we need some magical type of fabric. So I have a beautiful star background. And this fabric is a very old sky pattern from Timeless Treasures. I don't think it's available anymore, but there are lots of beautiful fabrics out there that we can use. And I have this pearl fabric for the unicorn. So I think it's going to be a very pretty pattern when it's done. So the only thing I need to decide right now is what fabric is going to get fused onto the flexi fuse. So with the pattern, I do have that full size layout and all of those individual pieces. But like I said, by having this pre-printed fusible, I don't have to do that step. And they're already put in sections for me. For example, this is the unicorn head, and everything on this section would be in that white fabric. So we have the head, the flowers, and that horn. So each section is designed for its own color, so I don't have to try to figure out the color family. As I'm choosing my fabric, I'm taking those fusible pieces and attaching them right onto the fabric. So I know what fabric I'm going to use, right from the smallest pieces to those very large pieces. Now I can go to the iron and fuse these on. My iron is a cotton setting, no steam. So I'm going to start with my fabric upside down. We do need to have this fabric pressed first. So I don't mind giving it an extra press. And while it's hot, place that fabric down. And then I'm only going to give it a very short pressing. It's just enough so that these layers stick together and that I can cut these out. I will be building up these layers of applique, and I do not want to give them too much heat. So I just want it to hold on. And by heating that fabric first, it makes it even quicker. So heat up the back of your fabric, place your applique on. It already almost wants to stick. One swipe, and that's all you're going to need. So I will fuse all of my fabrics and my fusible together first. Once all of these pieces have been fused onto the back of my fabric, I'm going to start building up this applique shape. And I'm going to work on one section at a time. I'm going to do the mane here first, and I'll be using a fusing mat. So this is a special mat that we're going to be able to iron over top. But as you can see, we can see right through it. I can iron these applique pieces on, and then when it cools, I can peel them all off in one big piece. I'm going to be able to build these up, and I'm going to start with the lowest number and build up. So in this case, I'm going to start with the number 7. Once that paper is removed, I can see through this sheet and I can line it right up. Now, number 8. And you'll find that flexi fuse is very light. And I'm going to be able to peek underneath that applique shape, line it up, and just give it a quick touch with the iron. Next, piece number 10. I do have my appliques stacked in order, and I'll take off that paper one at a time. Line it up and go to the next one. You do not need to iron every single time, just every once in a while. 11 will go next. So I will build up this entire area, laying one piece over top of another. Once this one section is done, I've just touched it with the iron a little bit, and then I let it cool. We're going to be able to peel that off in one big applique shape. And all the pieces are fused together. I can now put this aside and work on another section. I'm going to do that flower crown. If you do not have a fusing mat, you can always try a piece of parchment paper. And parchment paper is what we use in the kitchen, but be sure to test a portion. Here's a scrap of fabric with that fusible on it. Put it in the corner, iron it on, and wait until that cools down. And if you can peel it off without any of the glue sticking on your paper, you can use the parchment paper. Pin it down so it doesn't move. And now I can start building up those flowers. Once all those flowers are done, I can peel it off or just leave it on that parchment paper. I have a few pieces left of that mane, but it's under the flowers, so I'll put them aside for after. Now I'm going to work on that eye. The larger pieces that I was able to put together, I did that first. The other pieces I'm going to put on after as I'm working on the quilt. I will now prepare the background. So to prepare this back, what I've done is already made my quilt sandwich. So I have the front, the batting, and the backing already put together. I did use a Hobbs fusible batting, and that way it's all going to stay together as I'm working on it, and there'll be no pins. So I'm going to be appliquing the pieces on in layers. The first piece will be the head. So peel off that backing, and I started with a piece a lot bigger than recommended. But before I fuse this down, I'm going to make sure that everything will fit. And if I need to move it down a bit, this is the time to do it. Now that I know it's going to fit, I can fuse this piece on. And if we look at the layout diagram, we do have a little nose that's going to have to go on the end. And before I fuse those ears down, I am going to put the little horn underneath and give it all a good press. I now will bring this to my home sewing machine, put a walking foot on, and secure all of the edges with a small little zigzag. And that's going to quilt all of the layers at the same time. To help line up the applique pieces underneath, you can fold your paper in various places. I have a pin that's going through this one point at the neck, the point here, and I can put it in different places just to anchor this paper down, fold it in half. I've laid these applique pieces right over top of the paper and have pinned them down on the area where there is no paper. I can now remove that paper and smooth out those applique shapes, so I know they're going to be in the right place. Now I can fuse them down, take the pins out, and finish fusing those pieces down. I can do that same folding method for this eye. Fold the paper in half so the eye is in half. Line up some points. Now I can put that eye on. So I've matched it up on half the paper. Just hold that down and remove the paper. I now know where the eye goes. And fuse that down. I will now take this back to the machine and applique these pieces on, right through all of those layers. I'm building up one layer at a time. When I do this type of quilt appliquing, I'm going to roll this background fabric out of my way. Put some pins to hold those rolls down. I will roll every section that I can where the applique is not going to be done. This makes the area that I'm working on smaller so it's more manageable, and it sort of gives me a handle. And it keeps all the extra fabric out of my way. So this is definitely a better working space than the bigger quilt. The last thing to put on would be the crown of flowers. And fuse those on. Roll up those edges. It's nice and small. Now I can take it to the machine and finish appliquing. So all of that appliquing and quilting is done in one step. The last thing will be a little background quilting, trimming, and binding. Our beautiful unicorn is now done. The pattern is from Laser Cut Quilts. Having that fusible already drawn out for me was definitely a time saver. And by appliquing and quilting the layers together, it also is a time saver. I did this entire project in one day. Well, maybe not the binding. That still needs to be done. There are so many different fabrics that we could make this unicorn in. Bold prints, soft prints, and I was also thinking the whole thing in blacks, whites, grays, with a shot of red. I just might have to do it again. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're working on next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.